Yeah. Okay.
Hi everyone. I'm so excited that this is our third podcast on Mama Podcast. I am so excited about the guest that we have today because it happens to be my best friend. Oh my goodness. We've been friends since, I don't know, 2016, maybe 9 years now.
Yeah.
It's been really awesome. Welcome, Madison.
Hi. So exciting.
I am so excited. So, girl, I actually want you to introduce yourself. I would love to, I will talk about you from my perspective, but please introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay. Hi, I'm Maddie and I live in California in San Diego area. Yeah. And I enjoy the arts and science and I work in GIS, which is like geospatial software. So I get to make maps and apps, and it's a lot of fun. And I just love anything that's creative.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, you know what? Maddie only spoke about a tenth of who she is, what she does, but still so diverse. You can tell she's such a wholesome human being. I know Maddie loves nature. She
Yeah,
loves taking walks. She
yeah,
just told me something so cool, that she has something that she uses to listen to the sound of nature. So
oh
literally, she has an
yeah,
instrument where if you go on a leaf, she will hear the sound of that particular leaf. It's
yeah,
crazy. Okay, she's in love with nature like that. She has a cat. She
yeah,
loves cats like my daughter. Maybe my daughter is taking after Maddie.
yeah,
Wow, so much more Maddie, so much more. But you know what? Me and Maddie actually met in a class. That was a bit
yes,
difficult
yeah,
because we had like hard assignments. Let me tell you what would happen. Like we had hard assignments because, we would have assignments like almost every day. You're supposed to give like reflections and write about it. And whenever I would go and write, I would see that Muddy Power, like she wrote so much. And sometimes I just go and read, like, what did she write? Maybe I
oh,
can just kind of reflect based on what she wrote. But we met in that class at UC Berkeley. We've been friends ever since then. Before I left the US for Zimbabwe, she's one of the last people I met. I remember
yeah,
Maddie at that bus station in Berkeley.
yes.
Oh, so precious. I still have pictures from then also. And this year when I graduated, Maddie was so awesome. Like she came all the way from the US for my graduation. Oh, we had such a great time. It was so beautiful. Like I
Yes.
think it was the highlight of the decade, not even this year, but
Oh,
really the decade. Yeah, so
shoot.
awesome best friend, awesome human being. Muddy, I'm so excited to have you on Mama Podcast. Let's just
Yeah.
jump right into this. You know, girl, I'll start with what's exciting me the most. Girl, you wrote a book for kids. Not
Yeah.
only that, like you have like an accompanying game on it. Oh my goodness. Tell me everything about it.
So, okay, so I've always loved creative writing. And I feel like that's one thing like Cebu and I bonded on when we first became friends. Like we love writing and nature and art and things like that. And so yeah, I basically have always I have some of my journals right here. I always
Wow.
have a journal. I love these things. And I'm so silly because I'll literally just collect journals and write in them things like life intentions or little stories that come in my head. Like I'll be washing my hands and I'm like, oh, that would be cool. And then I'll write it down and like I might not make a story out of it, but I might look back at it years later and be like, oh, I could build on that maybe with something else. And like, so I've always had journals throughout my life, and I'll just write like maybe things that I'm experiencing in like that time, or just like also I'll check in with myself and be like, oh, um, like what am I doing good at right now? What do I need to improve? Like I'll rate like my systems, like my health, like if I'll be like, oh, you know what? I'm not really prioritizing sleep that much and it's making my quality of
Mm.
life not that good. Like I always feel groggy or something. So I'll kind of like rate my like systems that I have and I'll be like, okay, I need to get better at like praying or sleeping or whatever. And so yeah, it's just I love journaling and one of the things that I journaled about, I think 4 years ago, I think it's in this one. I think it's in this one or it might be in the other one. I think it's in the other one actually. But I journaled about this book and
Wow.
I just like I think it's here it is. Okay, so this was 4 years ago, I think. I'll show you.
Wow.
Okay, so it's right here, and
Wow.
it's just this turtle, which is like okay, like
Oh
uh,
my goodness.
but my first thoughts on this book, I put it's for kids 5 through 9, and it's basically like everyone in the sea swims to the the big swim to the edge. I think the edge meant like I don't know, like a trench or something. And then
Mm.
but once this turtle wants to be different and clean up the beach. So I think like I was thinking like, oh, like maybe where they live, like it's a polluted area or whatever. And
Mm.
then I said he has a different shell than most turtles his age, and he gets badges on his shell based on character traits that he develops throughout his lifetime. So, like, say he's like very helpful or whatever, like he might have like a hug like thing on his shell or something like that. And then so he gets made fun of and the turtles need to collect 3 badges on their shell before they can leave to the edge. The main character is having a hard time getting his last patch due to feeling unique and insecure about being different. He
Mm.
ventures to the edge and finally he meets other turtles with different disabilities. I didn't really go with
Mm.
this one because I instead of the turtles with disabilities, I put like a crab that only had one arm and like some
Mm.
other things like that, but and then
Mm.
it says he sees their badges on their shell and asks if they want to help clean up the beach. They all agree and he gains his last patch. His last patch is a revolutionary, which I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's because he's like a selfless idealist. And then he gets
Yeah.
celebrated with his new friends, and the beach gets cleaner. So, anyways, that's just
Wow.
one of the random things I was thinking of back in the day. And then I thought of the video game part
Wow.
too, where I was like, oh, it'd be cool to have turtles collect coins and pick up trash. But that's all like I thought about. I didn't even think about syncing the book with the game at the time. I was just like,
Wow.
pick up trash. I don't know.
Girl, oh my goodness, that is just amazing. That is just amazing. So this is 4 years ago. You already had the concept, the idea. So
Yeah,
take me a little bit into the process. Like, what has it been like? And girl, we're best friends. I had no idea you're working on this.
I
So this is just
know.
like so cool. I'm just so
Yeah.
excited. Tell me more. Like, yeah, process.
So, okay, so I feel like my creative process is kind of like a hermit. I really
Mm.
just like keep things to myself, like my ideas.
Mm.
Like I'm very kind of like I want to keep it just like, okay, I'm thinking this, and then I draw
Mm-hmm.
inspiration from like observations in life, like
Mm-hmm.
like people I meet or I see or things that I feel and then the creative process is so it's so like in flux. It's never like, oh my gosh, over the last 4 years, if I could just, bust out this whole book and video game all at once, that would be incredible.
Mm.
But
Mm.
unfortunately, the creative process in my world is very like I'll get burnt out and then I'll get inspired and then I'll get like tired of creating and then I'll miss creating and then I'll be working in my job and then I'll be like, oh my gosh, I want to create something that's like this and then I'll go back to creating. And so I feel like I feel like the creative process is like you get inspired, you draw on like life and you're just like, oh my gosh, like I'm so inspired by like creating this. And then you create something and then you look at it and you're like, that's cool. And then you might come back to it the next day and you're like, no, scratch that. I don't like anything about this. And then you get rid of the whole thing. And then and then
I love.
it's just it's not a straight and narrow process. It is so
Yeah.
um there's so many variables. It's just like in a lot of it too, I feel like my one of like my favorite creative, I guess, pieces that I make, it's always from a time when I'm kind of in a stale creative space for a while and then I'll
Mm.
come out of that like I guess writers call it writer's block, but
Block. Yeah.
creatives you could call it just a creative block, right? Like you're just feeling kind of flat,
Mm,
like
mm.
you're like I don't know, like what.
Yeah.
um it's usually after that and something will inspire me in life, like maybe I'll meet a person and I'm just really inspired by their music, or I'll see something in nature and that like inspires me. And then I'll come back to my journals and I'll put on like some like music or something and then I'll get all these ideas. And then it's just like any muscle, like going to the gym, like when you start using your
Mm.
creative muscle, you just kind of your creativity just kind of like bursts and you're like, oh, we can make this, we can
Mm.
make this. And I'd say the drawback sometimes to being like that is that you're kind of like sporadic in a way, like you have all these different ideas and then you just got to nail down one. Like you're like,
Yeah.
oh, what about this idea and this idea and this idea, and what if they're all created,
Mm.
and then like it's too open almost where it's like, oh my gosh, I just need to nail down one idea and stick with it.
Exactly.
That's the hardest part, is just sticking with one idea. So
Wow, girl. Girl, girl, girl. I love that you shared your process. And I'm like you, I have so many journals.
yeah,
And when I'm traveling, like moving from one place to the other, I don't mind giving away clothes. I don't mind giving away anything else but my journals. So
I
literally sometimes I'll take like page by page pictures of my journals so that I
yeah,
can just keep them. It's really crazy. But I haven't gotten to be able to like write a full book or anything like that. I think my writer's block is like for forever.
it's
But I love writing and a little bit different from you. Like I'm like when I think of something, I'm implementing it like right away. Like even like in this
good.
podcast and things like that. I'm very much spontaneous. Spontaneous, but I
Okay.
love it. I love it. But I do think I do get tired at some point.
Yeah. You're like,
you know,
okay.
I was listening to like some, people were like criticizing Meghan Markle, right? I like Meghan Markle. You're like, who? When you visited, I was talking about her, and they were
Yeah.
criticizing her. They were like, oh, she starts like a podcast, and then she'll
Yeah.
just end it and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, I would never criticize someone for that because that's exactly me. Like you,
Yeah,
you
like
enjoy something for a period of time, you move on to the next thing, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
No, super.
Anyways, Maddie, tell me something. So, I don't know, like I think anyone writes books, right? Like no stereotype, no judgment. But I kind of would see like an older person writing a kid's book or
Yeah.
someone who's been a mother first. Well, I know you're not a mother yet. I'm your best friend, but
Yeah.
I do know that you happen to be a firstborn. You have amazing siblings. You love them so much. You
Yeah.
care for them. Has this in any way been part of where, your desire to write a kid's book would come from?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel like my upbringing, I was always around kids, I feel like. And I loved being around kids because I felt like they're there's so much of themselves. And I feel like sometimes in adulthood we like lose who we really are to try to like look apart or like to try to be something we're not to get acceptance maybe from our peers or whatever it is. And so I always drew a lot of inspiration like being a nanny. Like I would nanny kids. I really enjoyed that. I'm an eldest sister, so I kind of being a firstborn eldest sister is like you're kind of second in charge in a way of being a mom. And so it was always like I was always thinking like, okay, I want to be a good example. I want to like have my siblings feel like they can be themselves. They don't have to um be something that they're not, and I feel like sometimes I wonder like even though we have these intentions to like pass on to our kids, or like I don't have kids yet, but like pass on to our siblings and younger people. Sometimes I wonder too like if kids or people, you can have intentions to teach them like, oh hey, like you are like beautiful as you are and things like that. Like I feel like sometimes kids don't believe it or something, or there's so much pressure from their peer groups from like other kids that they're just like, I you know want to be like this or things like that. Like I've had kids that I've either like nannied or even younger siblings that um you can tell that there's like a pressure for them to be a certain way, to maybe dress a certain way, or like where I live in Southern California, like a lot of girls they want to be like tan for summer and stuff. And so like I'm like trying to tell some of my younger siblings like, hey, like you know like you you want to take care of yourself. You don't want to like destroy your skin from getting sunburnt for multiple days just to fit like a beauty standard that people are supposed to fit where we live, and so, and I feel like that's challenging sometimes for a younger sibling to accept from an older sibling, because maybe they're just like, oh well, yeah, you say that but you don't really know because you're not of my generation or whatever, and I totally could see that. But it's like it hurts my heart sometimes as an older sibling because I see either my siblings or I see like younger people, and I'm just like, you guys, like I just feel like there needs to be more like self-love, and not like a take a bomb, not like take a bath bomb and be like, oh, self-love, but like truly respecting yourself, and not in an egotistical way, but in a way that's like like we're all created so uniquely, and like we should you know be celebrating that. And so yeah, it's being an eldest sibling and like a nanny from a young age. It's like I really enjoy all the experiences I've had with younger kids, but it also is so challenging because I see them going through things and I'm just like, oh man, like you can't force your kids to do something. Like you have to love them through whatever they're going through. But it's like, man, if I could just have you not think that, or you want so hard to just help them, but you don't want to like control them, you know. So
Well, Madi, that's so deep, girl. So maybe a little bit of like concision. You did talk about beauty, and
yeah.
I mean, amongst my friends, you're one of those people I look up to in terms of style, in terms of beauty. Like you always well put. Like you, oh my
Oh,
goodness, if you whatever you're wearing, like you just look great, right?
okay.
So I just want to understand, like as a woman, like what does beauty mean to you? In
Yeah.
2023,
Yeah.
my 2023, no, 2024,
Mm.
my one New Year's resolution was to understand what beauty meant to me. And I
Yeah.
was kind of like revamping myself as well.
Yeah.
That's the time that I started getting into more like style, thinking more deeply about what I wear. I
Yeah.
used to kind of be like that in high school, but when I went to university, I just kind of like, I became like a very simple person and I like simplicity. I still
Oh,
do.
yeah.
But right now, I think I'm more attuned to like what beauty means to me because I took a full year to think about it. I want to know from you, Maddie, like you're such a wholesome, balanced person. What does beauty mean to you?
Yeah. I feel like over the years I've really had to like think about that so much because I feel like every day, at least where I live very close to like Los Angeles, and that culture kind of has a large influence in um kind of the geographic area that I live in. And so I feel like over the years I've really had to dissect what beauty means because there's subliminal messaging all over the place in my like geographic proximity. And and I think it started really young actually when I was probably um maybe 9. Um, so my mom was very accepting of like who I was as a child. She would never force me to like wear certain things or whatever. And so I dressed as a result more tomboy. I would wear like baggy shirts and like cargo pants and just some sneakers.
Girl, we have so much in common. I used to do that like from one, from two. I was such a
Yeah.
tomboy.
And like my mom was just she didn't judge me. She would always like be supportive and loving and be like she would always take time to like brush my hair after my baths or like sometimes she would paint my nails and things like that. But it was very just not focused on who I look like to the world or whatever. It was just more on like developing my character and my mom showing me that take care for nature and things like that. I feel like a lot of my love for nature comes from my mom. She'd always take me in the parks and the beach and all these things, and we would just spend so much time there. And I just felt so alive and seeing all the different animals. We would go to the tide pools kind of where I live, and there's all these little like little fish in there, little crabs, and like I we would just have so much fun doing that. Um, and so I feel like beauty when I was 10 was more like it was more like who are you on the inside? How do you treat people? And like I think my mom really fostered that because she didn't put an emphasis on what your outside appearance looks like to the world. It was more just like how do you feel beautiful? And like I felt the most beautiful in nature and like being active and helping my friends or playing with other kids and like helping them. Like I felt most beautiful like that. Now this changes a little bit because I wish life was linear and just like, oh yes, of course, it's always been like that. But once I hit middle school, I feel like I felt more pressure and I saw these kids, they were wearing fancy clothes, and what was it? What was in back in the day? I think it was a store called Abercrombie and all this stuff. And all these kids would wear these like fancy clothes. And I was like, oh wow, like, maybe I should be more like that. And like, they have this like fancy perfume they're wearing and all this stuff. And so I tried that for about a year and like I just felt so uncomfortable in my own body. Like I just felt like I wasn't my tomboy self that was playing handball and collecting rocks and running around, and I was not that person anymore, and I felt kind of uncomfortable, and so that only lasted about a year. But after that, I started to get acne really bad. And
I've always had acne. I mean, like since like 11, it's like a part of life, a part of my
yeah,
life.
well, it's like well, and the thing is the acne that I did have, it was so painful. It was like
Mm.
all over my face, just red pimples everywhere. And I just remember just feeling so bad about myself. I just felt like, oh my gosh, like I just felt so embarrassed. Like I felt embarrassed by my acne. I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't feel comfortable in like how I look. I felt so just shy and like just no, I didn't want to show up for myself. I just felt like I wanted to hide and like I didn't want people to see me, you know? And it's so sad, but sometimes things like that, do that to people. Especially if you have really bad acne as a kid. And man, I would try everything. Like I would, you know, do certain washes, all this stuff. Nothing worked. And I even went to the doctor and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna prescribe you this pill, doxycycline or whatever to clear your skin." And I
Mhm.
tried that, but it's like it nothing worked. Um and so I started researching like what am I doing? Like what is causing this acne so much? And I was thinking, I was like, hey, maybe it's like how my lifestyle is as a teenager. I was I was eating like Easy Mac, Top Ramen, Eggo waffles, not very healthy things to me.
Chocolate,
Yeah,
candy.
chocolate, candy, and I had actually pretty bad anxiety too as a teenager, and so much so that sometimes I'd have trouble falling asleep and things like that. And
Mm.
so I started to really take account into like how am I treating myself? And I was like, whoa, like maybe I don't feel beautiful anymore like when I felt when I was 10, and I felt beautiful from like being in nature and like helping people and being with my friends and creating things. Maybe I don't feel that anymore because like I'm so fixated on what I'm supposed to be rather than who I am. And I looked at that in my food choices as well, and I was like, wow, like I'm just kind of eating things based off of like convenience. And like, obviously, I'm not going to be ungrateful for the food that's given to me from like my mom and stuff. But like, I was like, I could make a little bit more of an effort, you know? And um, anyways, I think long story short, when I was a teenager, beauty was more like it was something that I thought I can get externally from like a cream or a medicine to get rid of my acne or maybe a lip gloss or something. And none of those things made me feel beautiful. And so I learned that I needed to take better care of myself. And so I started eating healthier. I started exercising more, going on walks, runs. I started learning more about like, this the spiritual side of life. and like God and things like that and the importance of that. And then I was like, wow, like I'm not doing a very good job at that stuff. So maybe that's why I don't feel beautiful anymore. Um, and I feel like at my current age, I feel like beauty to me means like you go to your like you go to your creator, God, and derive your you derive your sense of self from that. Nothing in this world, jobs, degrees, marriage, any of these things can really define your beauty. They're nice things to do and have, but they're not going to give you that feeling of feeling beautiful. And I think the reason I felt that as a child is because I was with, you know, the creation of God, right? I was in nature, I was with other children and like, helping them and things like that. And like that felt beautiful because that's where we're supposed to derive that feeling from. It's not in a cream or whatever. And I think from that, I was like, oh, well, I want to take care of myself because I want to take care of myself and look after myself and conduct myself in a way that is pleasing like to my creator. Like I want to do that for that. I don't want to do that for the people of the world because what if the people of the world tomorrow are like, okay, everyone has to be 90 pounds and get, whatever, like plastic surgery. Like I'm not gonna do that. So I learned that and then I was like, wow, that's why as a child I felt, the most beautiful. And so
Wow, that is so deep, so deep. Girl, we just have a few more minutes. But we've been able to talk about your book, your game, you as a firstborn girl and having siblings and how that inspired you writing. We've talked about beauty. I really
yes,
felt like we may want to collaborate on a book for young teenage girls on beauty. We should write something
yes,
together. That'll be so cool. That'll be
that would
so
be
cool.
amazing.
But yeah, because we have a few minutes left, I just want you to share anything that you feel like you want to talk about.
Yeah.
It could be lessons that you've learned from your mother. It could be lessons you've learned from, being a firstborn girl, with like deputy parent responsibility, anything. And one more thing, I know you've traveled the world, girl. Like, how many countries have you traveled to?
um okay. Peru, um Canada, France, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Italy, um Finland, Ireland, Scotland, aka UK, and and I don't know if staying in like airports counts, but
No.
like if that's
Okay.
the way, then a
Okay,
lot
I
of
have a feeling I'm kind of ahead of you, but I was so sure you're ahead of me. I think I'm on like 17 countries. You seem to be probably at like 12. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
Okay, you have to catch up with me. Then after that, we travel together.
yeah.
All right, and you haven't traveled the world until you come to Zimbabwe.
I that is on my list, and I want to go to Kenya
Kenya.
and Tanzania and
Yeah, definitely.
Mauritius.
We should do together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Last thoughts. Last thoughts.
Okay,
What
last
are your
thoughts.
final thoughts?
Yeah, I was like, uh, so I would say, um, well, I love the last question of like on my mother's impact on my creative milestone. What single piece of advice would you pass on to aspiring storytellers and game designers? I would say that um just just like take action on your creative idea. Like you don't have to have the whole thing today, but if you have an idea and it randomly comes to you, you don't judge it. Just write it in your little journal and be like, okay, I have an idea. Come back to it tomorrow or maybe in a month or a year and look at it and be like, oh, I really like that. Or be like, oh, I don't like that, but I could add on to that. And always keep that childlike self that that you are. Don't get hardened by the world, and don't think you need to be a certain way to be accepted or loved. You already are those things, and everyone's always in the point of refinement and things like that, but like just always you know believe that the talents and the gifts that you're given in this life, they're for a reason, and use those to help people. And if one of those gifts are
Wow.
storytelling, go at it, whatever. If people think your ideas are cringy, that's on them, but just put it out there, and maybe you help one person. Okay, well, that's why you're supposed to create that story then, you
Yeah.
know? And so, don't look at it from a point of like, oh, well, I get rich and famous or all these things. Look at it more like, if I,
Impact.
yeah, impact. How can I help people? Why do I feel this drive to make this thing? There's a reason for it. Maybe you're supposed to help one or two people, and that was the whole point of you making whatever it is, the video game or the book or the art piece or the music, or and it's like that was the purpose. So,
Wow, 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 wow. Girl, we're just short on time now, but I
yeah.
love this, which means we definitely have to have another podcast. We'll find what
Yes.
we'll talk about. But it was so awesome having you as a guest best friend. Thank you
Yes.
so much for taking time to do this. You've always been there for me. I remember two of my like biggest interviews in life. You told me what to wear. You like helped me prepare for those interviews, like gave me 1 hour of like prep for it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, like one of my jobs right now is based on your prep for that interview.
Oh,
You were there for my graduation. You've just been there, like both graduations actually, UC Berkeley and here in Finland. Girl, thank you so much for just being an amazing friend. You've always been there for me. Even canceling, like literally today, I was thinking that last time you canceled me when I was trying to make a decision, you said to me, Sibu, think about it. Think of the fruit. Like, are you doing this out of fear or out of faith? I'm like, wow, Madi, it was so awesome having you. We're out
yeah.
of time, but thank you. A huge clap to Madison Power. Thank you for being an
Uh,
inspiration.
it was
And
a
then,
it's a blessing
yeah.
to be friends with you, Cebu. I
Oh my
we
goodness.
only have a less than a minute, but when I first met Cebu, she had this like conviction when she talked, and I was like, yeah, it's the gift of speech. So, yep.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh, thank you so much, girl. All right, then. So, to our audience, until next time, see you on the fourth podcast. It was so lovely having my best friend, Madison Power, today. I just loved it. It was like we're just having a chat, and
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed our chat as best friends.
Yes.